There's a stretch of Highway 285 in West Texas that truckers call the Nothing. For over 100 miles, it's just a two-lane blacktop cutting a straight, merciless line through a world the color of rust and bone. There's no radio signal, no cell service, and no towns. Just you, your engine, and a sky so vast and empty it feels like it could swallow you whole. The heat cooks the road until the air itself ripples, creating mirages that dance on the horizon, phantom lakes, imaginary cars. You learn to ignore them. You have to, or you'll go mad. I was hauling a load of dry goods from Pecos to Sanderson, a routine run I'd made 100 times. The sun was a sledgehammer in the sky, beating down on the roof of my cab. My Peterbilt's air conditioner was whining, fighting a losing battle. It was the kind of heat where you feel the sweat on your back before you've even moved. I was in the rhythm of the road, that dull, hypnotic state where your mind is half asleep, but your hands and feet know exactly what to do. It was in this daze that I first saw it. A casual glance in my big rectangular rearview mirror. The road behind me was empty, a shimmering ribbon of asphalt stretching back to the curve of the earth. But right in the center of the lane, maybe a quarter-mile back, was a distortion, a flicker in the heat haze. It wasn't a car. It had no definite shape. It looked like a column of superheated air, a darker, denser shimmer than the mirages around it. I blinked, figuring it was just another highway ghost, a trick of the light and a tired mind. I took a long drink from my water bottle, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. But a few minutes later, I looked back. It was still there. It hadn't gotten closer, and it hadn't fallen behind. It just hung there in the mirror, keeping perfect pace with my rig going 65 miles an hour. That was the first thing that felt wrong. A mirage is static. It's an optical illusion tied to a specific spot on the road. You drive past it, and it disappears from your mirror. This thing, it was moving with me. Okay, that's weird, I mumbled to the empty cab. To test the theory, I eased my foot off the accelerator, letting my speed drop to 60. I watched the mirror, the shimmer, the dark flicker in the air, slowed down with me, maintaining its exact distance. My stomach tightened. I pushed the accelerator again, bringing the rig up to 70. It sped up too, a perfect, unwavering shadow. This wasn't a mirage. I grabbed my CB mic out of pure instinct, wanting to hear another human voice. "Anyone on this channel? Eastbound on the 285, I asked. The only reply was a loud crackle of static, like the sound of a dry fire consuming everything in the world. I looked back at the mirror. The road was still empty. The sun was still brutal, and the dark shimmer was still there, my silent, impossible passenger. For the first time on a road I'd driven my whole life, I felt the deep, primal sense of being watched. And for the first time, I felt the desperate urge to drive faster. An hour crawled by. Every 90 seconds I checked the mirror. It was always there, the dark heat ripple that refused to act like heat or a ripple. By now, the rational part of my brain was working overtime, trying to file this away under something explainable. A dust devil behaving strangely, a piece of tire debris, a road gator, stuck to my trailer and creating a shadow. I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to know. I found a rare stretch of wide shoulder, the gravel crackling like bones under the weight of my 18 wheels as I pulled over. The silence that hit when I killed the engine was absolute. The only sound was the ticking of hot metal contracting and the whisper of the wind over the scorched earth.
I unbuckled, my heart thumping a slow, heavy rhythm in my chest. I swung open the driver's side door and climbed down, my boots seeking into the hot, soft asphalt. I stood beside my rig and looked back down the highway I'd just come from. Nothing. The road was completely, utterly empty. Not a car, not a truck, not a single sign of life for miles in either direction. The heat haze was there, but the dark, man-shaped shimmer was gone. A wave of relief washed over me, so strong it almost made me dizzy. It was a mirage, an illusion, tied to the angle of the sun, the glass of the mirror, and the vibration of the engine. I chuckled at my own paranoia, feeling like a fool. I walked the entire length of my trailer, checking every axle, every tire, just to be sure. Nothing was out of place. Satisfied, I climbed back into the hot cab, the smell of vinyl and sweat welcoming me back. I turned the key, and the big diesel engine roared back to life. I did my checks, glanced at my mirrors, and put the truck in gear. And there it was, in my rearview mirror, as soon as the engine was running. It was back in its spot, a quarter-mile away, dead center in the lane, waiting for me. The blood drained from my face. This wasn't an illusion created by the truck's movement, because the truck wasn't moving yet. It was tied to the truck itself, or maybe to me. Fear, cold and sharp, cut through the oppressive heat. This thing wasn't just behind my truck, it was watching my truck. I slammed the truck into gear and peeled out from the shoulder, kicking up a cloud of dust and gravel. I put the hammer down, pushing the engine harder than I should have in this heat. 80 miles an hour, 85. The whole ridge shuddered in protest. I stared at the mirror, the figure, and now I could see it had a vague, upright shape, like a man walking, effortlessly kept pace. It didn't run, it just was. There, its form was still indistinct, like a memory you can't quite grasp, but it was there, and it was gaining on me, not in distance, but in presence. It felt closer, its intent more focused. I knew then, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I was being hunted. Not by a man and not by an animal. I was being hunted by a piece of the highway itself.
For another 2 hours, I was a man possessed. I didn't just drive, I fled. I pushed my rig to its limits, the engine overheating, the tires humming a song of imminent failure. But no matter how fast I went, the shape in the mirror stayed with me, a persistent, silent predator. My throat was dry, my palms slick with sweat on the steering wheel. I was running out of road, running out of nerve, and running out of daylight. Just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery, apocalyptic colors, I saw a light, a single, flickering yellow bulb. It was a ramshackle building just off the highway, a combination gas station and greasy spoon that looked like it had been standing there since the invention of the wheel. It was the first sign of civilization I'd seen in 4 hours. Without a second thought, I veered off the road and pulled up to the diesel pump. As I shut off the engine, I took one last, fearful look in the mirror. With the truck's libration gone, the figure had vanished. The place was run by an old man, with skin like cracked leather and eyes that had seen too many sunrises over this empty landscape. He moved slowly, deliberately, as he filled my tanks. I was practically babbling, stumbling over my words as I tried to explain what I'd seen. A man, a shape, a shadow that kept pace no matter what. He didn't look surprised. He didn't even look interested. He just kept watching the numbers on the pump tick over. When I finally ran out of words, he finished fueling, screwed the cap back on, and wiped his hands on a greasy rag. "You saw the runner," he said, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. It wasn't a question. "The what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He gestured for me to follow him inside, into the dimly lit, dusty store. He poured 2 cups of thick black coffee. He stared into his cup. Been a while since anyone seen him. He only shows up when the heat's just right. The legend's old, older than this highway. He told me the story. Decades ago, a man broke down on this very stretch of road. His car died, and he tried to walk to the next town for help right in the middle of a July afternoon. He never made it. They found him a few days later, just a mile from here. He had died of thirst and heat stroke, his hand outstretched as if he were still trying to wave down a car that never came. They say his ghost is still out there, the old man continued, his voice low. Still walking. He sees a car, a truck. He thinks it's his ride, the help he never got. He latches on, trying to catch up. He'll follow you to the end of the world if you let him. A cold dread spread through my chest. What does he want? The old man finally looked up, and his eyes were dark and serious. He's tired of walking. He's not trying to get a ride. He's trying to get a driver. He wants to get in, and once he's in your cab, well, you'll be the one left walking this road for the next 50 years. He took a slow sip of coffee. You gotta get rid of him before night falls completely, because in the dark, he can get closer. I left that gas station with a tank full of fuel and a gut full of ice. The old man's words echoed in my head. In the dark, he can get closer. The sun had already disappeared, leaving the sky a deep bruised purple. Darkness was falling fast in the desert, not fading in gently, but dropping like a thick black curtain. I fired up the rig and looked in the mirror. There he was. But something had changed. The setting sun was no longer backlighting him, and he was no longer a shimmering distortion. I could see him more clearly now, a tall, gaunt figure dressed in what looked like tattered work clothes. I couldn't make out his face, it was just a blurred shadow, but I could see the distinct, jerky motion of his legs as he walked, a tireless, relentless pace that somehow kept up with my 70-mile-an-hour flight. He wasn't a Shimmer anymore. He was a man, a dead man. The old man was right. He was closer. Not physically, he still kept that quarter-mile distance, but his presence felt 10 times stronger. The cab grew cold. A chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioner crept over my skin. Then came the sounds. It started with the faint scratching sound from the back of the cab. Scratch, scratch, like a dog trying to get in. I knew it was impossible. There was a 40-foot trailer between me and him, but the sound was there. My eyes darted from the road to the mirrors to the empty space beside me. Then the CB radio crackled to life on its own. It wasn't static anymore. It was a whisper, a long, drawn-out sound like wind through a cracked open grave. It was a dry, thirsty sound. From within the whisper, I could almost make out a single word, repeated over and over. Ride, ride, ride. I shut the radio off, but the whispering continued, now seeming to come from the air vents. I was driving with the windows rolled up tight, but I could smell dust, not road dust, but old, dry dust like from a tomb. Panic set in, hot and suffocating. He was breaking through. The mirror was like a window between his world and mine, and he was clawing at the glass, trying to find a way in. I glanced at my passenger side mirror, and for a heart-stopping second, I saw his shadowy face reflected in it, right next to mine, his featureless head turned toward me. I yelled and swerved, the tires screaming on the asphalt. I looked again, and there was nothing but my reflection of my own terrified face. I was losing control. The old man said I had to get rid of him. But how? I couldn't outrun him. He wasn't bound by the laws of physics. Then it hit me.
He wasn't physically behind me. I had proven that when I gotten out of the truck. He only existed in one place, the reflection. He was a ghost in the glass. I didn't have to escape him on the road. I had to trap him or destroy his doorway.
My mind raced. How do you fight a reflection? I couldn't just ignore the mirror. Driving a big rig without it, especially at night on a 2-lane highway, was suicide. But letting him stay there was a slower, more certain kind of death. The scratching sound grew louder, now seeming to come from the roof of the cab itself. The whisper for a ride was a constant, maddening presence in my ears. I knew I didn't have much time before my nerve broke completely and I drove us both into a ditch. Then I knew what I had to do. It was a crazy, desperate act, a choice between a potential crash and a definite haunting. I chose potential. I kept my left hand on the wheel, holding the truck as steady as I could. With my right hand, I unbuckled my heavy belt. I took a deep breath, braced myself, and with a guttural roar that was part anger and part terror, I swung the heavy steel buckle as hard as I could into the rearview mirror. The glass exploded. For a split second, I saw the face of the runner in the shattering reflection. His features finally clear, a face of agony, mouth open in a silent scream of thirst and despair. Then he dissolved into 1,000 flying shards of silvered glass. The effect was instantaneous and absolute. The scratching stopped, the whispering ceased, the bone-deep chill in the cab vanished, replaced by the natural, oppressive Texas heat. It was over. The connection was broken. I drove on, the empty plastic housing of the mirror rattling gently, my knuckles bleeding, my breath coming in ragged gasp. The feeling of being watched was gone. I was alone again, truly alone. I made it to Sanderson just before dawn. I got a new mirror installed and didn't tell a soul what happened. But the story doesn't end there. They say when you break a mirror, you get 7 years of bad luck. But that's not how this works. I'm free as a runner. You can't get into my cab. But sometimes when I'm driving that same stretch of 285, I'll see something on the road, a flicker of movement. The shape of a man walking by the shoulder, his thumb stuck out for a ride. And when I look in my new mirror, there's nothing behind me. He's not a reflection anymore. I cast him out of my mirror and back into the real world. But there's a new fear now. Every time I see him standing there, a question freezes my heart. If his ghost is out there on the road, whose reflection is just waiting for the right moment to appear in mine? Because this highway is a lonely place, and it's always looking for new ghosts.